Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor for me to provide some remarks about the enormous challenge of how we must build back better in terms of rebuilding our aging infrastructure and recovering from the pandemic and which has crippled our economies. Pacific Northwest Building Resilience Coalition, or PNWER, is proud to be the sponsor of this session, as well as being a platinum sponsor of the 2021 PNWER Summit. This is our 5th year as a member and platinum sponsor of PNWER, and we are grateful for the opportunity to work with the many dedicated members of this outstanding model of multi-jurisdictional collaboration. We are also very proud to be in partnership with PNWER and the University of Victoria for the Research and Policy Development Program, the Roadmap to Resilient, Ultra-Low Energy, Zero Carbon Buildings by 2030. We steadfastly support the vision and activities of PNWER in uniting the efforts of 2 great nations in common cause to deal with the many challenges we face in today's increasingly complex world. The partnerships and collaborations that we forge at meetings such as this is the glue that unites us in common cause to build a better future. Building better buildings and infrastructure is critical for the future well-being of millions of people worldwide. Building better and resilient buildings and infrastructure advocates for the investment in our communities to construct to higher standards than current established building codes that are designed for life safety and not automatically damage prevention. Nothing has brought this message home more clearly than the shock we see from the coverage of recent wildland fires that have decimated communities in our western states and provinces, combined with what we have experienced from the pandemic. I don't have to tell you about the pandemic. Every one of us has been touched in some way by either the personal loss of a loved one or has felt the economic impact of our shattered economies. But let me speak to the other challenge we face. That is of critical importance to the presentations we've seen all week and the mission of the Building Resilience Coalition. Last week, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or what's called the IPCC, released the finding of its massive 6th assessment report. And with respect for your personal consideration of climate change, please allow me to read the short paragraph from that report that's focused on cities. With regard to climate change, urban areas and cities will be affected by more frequent occurrence of extreme climate events, such as heat waves, with more hot days and warm nights, as well as sea level rise and increases in tropical cyclone storm surge and rainfall intensity that will increase the probability of coastal flooding. That may not be very imaginable to us here in Montana. However, the report goes on to make it abundantly clear that heat waves, forest fires, drought, failed crop yields, and decreased fish harvests will become the norm in the future. We didn't really need the IPCC to tell us that our future is not what it used to be. We can simply look at the raging fires that have wiped out whole communities in both of our countries, or the torrential rains that have flooded many cities and overpowered the roads, bridges, and other infrastructure we once thought were fully capable of managing any calamity. Against this backdrop, you can see why organizations like the Building Resilience Coalition are so critical to the mission to build better, safer, stronger, long-lasting, and more resilient cities, towns, and infrastructure. Likewise, we are fully aware that the building materials we work with and the way we build needs to be accomplished through processes that dramatically reduce carbon emissions. Our members, working with some of the most advanced research facilities in the world, are at the forefront of innovation in lowering the carbon footprint of the built environment. Concrete is the most widely used building material in the world's economy. So it's appropriate that we start right there to decarbonize, reduce emissions, build better, and build the elements of communities that can withstand the shocks of a changing climate, environmental and natural catastrophes, and future pandemics. During the month of June, as Nat was referring to, PNWER collaborated with PNWER to provide 4 key webinars focused on achieving resilience and climate targets, making transparent the cement, concrete, and masonry industry's pathway to carbon neutrality. The webinars are available on PNWER webinar page, If you have an interest in how industry carbonization is progressing, I highly recommend your review. I would publicly like to thank Senator Mike Cuff, MLA Richard Gottfried, Matt Morrison, and Eric Holdeman for your inspiring opening comments and the support of the series. Thank you very much. Sustainability principles representing global and North American cement and concrete industries introduce the industry's pathway to carbon neutrality by 2050. What will we be building and what materials will we build with? We discussed the circular economy that reduces waste and encourages reuse and recycle. We heard about the new technologies in the cement industry, such as lower carbon blended cements. And I'm happy to tell you that Portland limestone cement, one of those lower GHG cement technologies, is actually available in the Northwest US and Canada and reduces the amount of CO2 by approximately 10% compared to ordinary Portland cement, which we're all used to. The industry is also piloting projects to implement carbon capture, utilization, and storage with several recent projects in Canada and the start of one in the United States. The second webinar identifies current and future innovations of concrete, such as the use of supplementary cementitious materials in lieu of higher carbon products and virgin raw materials that reduces the embodied carbon content of concrete. The need to switch from prescriptive specifications to performance-based specifications to minimize cement content to the threshold that is necessary and safe to satisfy the project engineering requirements. How concrete in the built environment is already permanently sequestering carbon through a natural process known as carbonation, therefore becoming a permanent carbon sink. Another innovation is the development of enhanced carbon capture sequestration through the injection of CO2 into wet concrete during the batching cycle to permanently mineralize itself with the aggregates. It's important to recognize that each of these technologies I just talked about does not stand alone and can be and should be implemented in conjunction with each other to achieve carbon neutrality. MIT researchers discussed reducing the footprint of cement production, leveraging opportunities in concrete production and use, and identifying potential net negative applications, and how concrete in the use today contributes to GHG reduction in the future by improving auto and truck fuel economy on rigid pavements, thus reducing emissions on our roads through what is technically referred to as pavement vehicle interaction. The thermal mass of the building envelope for the efficient heating and cooling of buildings, and the reflective characteristics of concrete known as albedo that creates radiative forcing and alters the GHG emissions of adjacent buildings and vehicles. I know who you were. On Monday, we heard from former Canada ambassador to the US, Gary Dorr, mentioned that energy efficiency has provided us with the greatest reduction in greenhouse gases to date. I've just cited 4 major energy efficiency examples that perform on a macro scale. Finally, the US Resiliency Council tied all of the webinars together, reminding us that we must build better resilient buildings and infrastructure that can better withstand the challenges of climate change, as well as other adverse events resulting from natural processes of the earth. We must understand the place that buildings have in the community and be able to quantify the social, the economical, and the environmental returns of resilient design to all stakeholder groups and expand carbon and environmental life cycle assessments to consider the benefits of resilient design by eliminating unnecessary repair and replacement. The future is not what it used to be. We have built our cities and towns and associated systems of transportation that support our trade and commerce predicated on certain assumptions about climate-related risks. While the achievements we've made over the years in building our highways, railways, ports, multimodal systems, and pipelines to move people and commodities are staggering in their own rights, some of those risk-related expectations may now be out of date. The future is indeed different, and if we want to meet the new challenges that lie before us, we will have to build differently. build better, and build with more attention to climate resilience and rapid recovery from natural disasters. We've learned a story every day in our meetings this week. Pandemic, energy efficiency, energy infrastructure development, wildfires and wildland-urban interface fires, water management and transmission, temperatures in the Northwest reaching 120 degrees. Montana's summers are now 2 weeks shorter, and the list goes on. We must also shift from what is known as a linear economy, which is basically manufacture, use, and disposal of products, to a circular economy that promotes recycling, repurpose, and reuse by deconstruction rather than by demolition, by making better use of existing buildings and structures, designing new spaces in ways that eliminate waste, and reusing and recycling materials in order to achieve carbon neutrality of the built environment. We are now at the pinnacle of future design and planning that will determine what we build, where we build, how we build, and what we build with. We are very grateful to our civic and business leaders, who are many of you attending today, as well as the distinguished speakers and members of our panels throughout the week, for demonstrating your leadership in policymaking and programming to enable us to move forward with the infrastructure needed to achieve our mission to build back better. The key word, of course, is better. Not simply as good as before, but better. Resilience is defined as the ability to resist, absorb, accommodate, and recover from the effects of a hazard in a timely and an efficient manner. Resilience is not simply about how fast you can repair something once a disaster hits. Instead, it's about the thoughtful planning, policy development, and design of our future infrastructure to withstand whatever man or Mother Nature throws at us. So yes, let's build back better. So thank you, and my thanks to the leaders and members of PNWER for the terrific job you are doing. We are very pleased to be one of your active members and your many sponsors. Thank you very much.